Hello and welcome to Littleton Common. I'm Mark Crory along with Bob Spinozzi. I'm filling in for Barbara McRae this month. Barbara's brother Henry passed away, so she is away spending time with her family. And our thoughts and prayers go out to her.
June is here, and that means a lot of us will be getting out of the house and looking forward to the nicer weather. On Thursday, June 16th, will be the start of the summer series Third Thursdays on the Littleton Common. There will be a variety of local vendors on hand, plus food, entertainment, and games. This event has really grown in popularity over the years, and it's really a fun time to get out and mingle with your friends and your neighbors.
Littleton Community Farms has generously donated several community-supported agriculture, or CSA, shares to Elder and Human Services. Families who are interested in receiving a box of fresh produce every week for the summer should contact Tina Mader at 978-540-2472 to make an application to participate in this free program. The Friends of the COA are providing gift cards to be used by Littleton elders at the local farm stands this summer as well. Again, contact Tina Mader to discuss eligibility for receiving one of these cards.
There's a little pocket in Littleton where two of the town's best kept secrets are located. One secret is historical. Where Oak Meadow Montessori School is located, sat the Cobb Chicken Breeding Company. Established in 1916, Cobb became the world's most successful breeder of boilers. After a merger, it was bought out by Upjohn Pharmaceutical in the mid-1970s, and then through mergers and acquisitions, it became part of Tyson Foods. Now, the other secret is not much more than a stone's throw away. It's Bonsai West's tree nursery. Gift-driven by Bonsai West, and if you haven't stopped in, well, behind the greenhouse, there's a sea of green and an oasis of trees like you have never seen before. I was there recently and spent some time with founder and owner Michael Levin, so let me share that visit with you. Michael, thanks for having me over today.
Thanks, it's great having you here. It's beautiful, isn't it?
100 Great Road, or another way of describing your location, is right off of Powers Road and Route 2A. And it is, in fact, it could very well be Littleton's best kept secret, which is something we were just talking about right now. But the bonsai tree, very unique. So give us a little history and talk about its popularity today.
Well, first of all, I do want to say it is Littleton's best kept secret because I hear over and over again people saying they've driven by for the last 10 years and they've never stopped in. And my theory on that is that you would think, why would you go to a bonsai nursery unless you're looking for a bonsai tree? You wouldn't think that there would be this amazing arboretum and collection of some of the oldest trees in the country right here behind this old New England farmhouse. So I'm always telling people, you know, don't wait to come here because you're looking for a gift or a bonsai. Just come on down and bring the family and enjoy this garden.
And as you were saying, the farmhouse fits in just right, too.
Well, it really does, because I think that's the other thing, the intimidation factor of learning an Asian art form and thinking that you have to be part of this sort of elite Japanese culture to do bonsai, when in fact, and we'll talk more about this, in fact, it's just growing trees in a pot. But the history of bonsai is really fascinating because you know, it goes back, you know, many centuries, and started in China before Japan. But we actually think of bonsai as a Japanese art form because it's the Japanese who really have formalized it and have given us these traditional rules and ways of doing it. And still in Japan, it's an art form that's passed down from master to apprentice, from generation to generation, from father to son, and it is mostly men who do bonsai. But the history of bonsai in America is completely different.
Can I use the word miniature while we're talking? Because these are miniature trees in my eyes.
But it's more the art of pruning and sculpting. So it's miniature, and that's what we're trying to create. It's not the fact that they're small as much as the fact that they're replications of their natural counterparts. So anywhere that you go in the world, you're going to see naturally stunted trees on the mountainsides. Here in New England, you could drive up to Acadia and just walk out onto the coast and see trees that, are hundreds and hundreds of years old that are just growing in the pockets of rock that have been naturally stunted. And so the whole concept of bonsai is creating a tree in miniature that gives you the feel of the natural landscape.
Now, the trees that you have here, obviously, there are so many different types here, but some, my understanding are cold weather, some are warmer climates.
And that is probably one of my biggest one of the biggest handicaps in building a bonsai business is that in this country we're dealing with a house plant culture. Most people are looking for something for their home. They're more surprised when I tell them that these beautiful trees are growing outside than they think they're delicate because they're so miniature. So since they look delicate because they're so small, but we've built a whole indoor bonsai business, and right behind us here is the greenhouse that's filled with thousands of varieties of indoor trees. And as it turns out, most of my customers are still looking for indoor bonsai. But as you can see from these beautiful pictures and all these amazing trees that are sitting right in this garden, these are all cold hardy, cold weather, northern type trees that would do much better outside than inside. In fact, most of them can't grow inside at all. We just tuck them away for the winter, and basically an unheated garage or a cold frame. It's actually a pretty easy hobby to get into.
Pretty easy hobby to get into, but also very rare to find a bonsai store. I counted one other in all of New England.
Well,
I might have miscounted by one.
From a business perspective, we all have an inside joke is, how do you make $1 million in a bonsai business? You start with $2 million. It's nobody's making money. No, even the old-time Japanese the Japanese Americans that were farmers out in California all had second incomes. It's not. I'm thinking of last year when we had that whole emergency with all the snow that we had here in New England. Do you think anybody was even thinking about buying a bonsai tree? When you actually think about, my father saying, why don't you take on herbs or Christmas trees? Everybody who was giving me advice when I was young and starting this business was saying, that you would never be able to do it in bonsai. But I'm one of the few nurseries and nursery bonsai men who actually has made a living just doing bonsai. I don't have a second income, and it's been a struggle and it's been a difficult business, but it works. And I started this place in 1982, and it's still going, and it's actually getting more and more popular and doing better than ever before.
Now, a lot of your clientele, I'm sure you have some who are coming here for the first time buying their first one or two bonsai trees, but do you have a lot of part of your clientele where they're adding on to what they have?
It's an addiction, and we kind of laugh about it because we can see the type of person who is going to be a long-term, hardcore bonsai hobbyist. And I think it's more like saltwater fish or tropical fish. A lot of men get into bonsai, and it's a nurturing hobby. And my whole concept of why men are attracted to bonsai more than women in so many ways is because we don't have a nurturing. Usually traditional roles would be that the woman takes care of the kids and does the cooking, and that for a man to be able to have a hobby that is growing a tree, so you're working with your hands, but this tree is completely dependent on you for its life, forever. This tree will outgrow you. This tree will get passed down from generation to generation. And so, we don't have this, this opportunity to nurture a being like this, a tree that is going to grow and is going to be dependent on our caring for it forever, to take care of it. So I think that's one reason why men get into bonsai. But with that said, there's more and more women around the world, and I go to bonsai conventions, I go to bonsai exhibits, and yes, there are bonsai exhibitions in this country, and you see more and more Americans and women in particular doing bonsai as well.
Okay. Well, I want to come back to the bonsai tree, but let's first talk about Bonsai West and the actual seed that started this this business. And it started, you mentioned 1982 earlier in Harvard Square, I believe.
Well, that was kind of remarkable because I got a BA in psychology. I graduated and was working as a counselor in Newton, and I had 2 young kids myself, and I think I was making $5 an hour as a guidance counselor, and I just needed more, a career. And I was up in New Hampshire driving, and I saw bonsai trees at a garden center. I didn't know, it wasn't like this was my hobby turned business like you would think it might be, but I never knew what a bonsai tree was. I'd never seen one, and it was a lightning bolt. It just struck, and I just looked at these trees and said, oh my God, I can sell these. And I saw them at a fruit stand actually up in Hollis, New Hampshire, and asked the owner where he got them from, and he just said some old Japanese guy down in New Jersey. But I didn't stop at that. I hunted for this old Japanese man and found his supplier, and I had a little Volkswagen Rabbit, and I still remember I spent $500 on my first group of bonsai and went door to door to every florist shop trying to wholesale them. And then with the extra trees that I had at the end of the week that were my samples, I laid out a little tatami mat in Harvard Square and started peddling them. And my kids would actually guard the trees while I found a parking spot, and everybody was fearful of Benny the cop, who was, patrolling the street, and all these other street vendors, they had jewelry and all these, fold up, wooden, things that they could just fold up and get out of there. And I was the guy busted all the time with my bonsai trees. But there was something kind of cool and groovy about the idea that there was somebody selling bonsai on a tatami mat, and people would go by me, and I still remember the progression. It was, they would say, oh, look at those cute little things. And gradually, as the years or the months even went by, they would say, oh, look at the trees. So there was this education already from look at these things to look at these trees to all of a sudden the Karate Kid coming out, and it was bonsai, Miyagi-san. And the Karate Kid was, probably the #1 boost to everybody in the bonsai business.
So you were just set up there right around out-of-town news with all the other vendors and all that traffic swirling through Harvard Square?
Right there where the guys were playing chess and obon-pan, and just right, I can still see the spot where I was in 1982.
So that was 1982, and then there was the move to your first store, I believe, in Brookline?
I moved
Massachusetts.
To Brookline. Right, so Brookline Village, a little store there, 400 square feet with no bathroom. I'd go to the Chinese restaurant across the street to go to the bathroom. I'd have to lock the store up. And I took out some advertising. I still remember my wife came up with a great slogan, "Make History," when we had this little bonsai tree on the logo, and gradually moved across the street to a bigger store, and had some mistakes along the way. I opened a store on Newberry Street that failed. I went bankrupt with that store, and I actually got the wrong impression back then, thinking that bonsai was going to be an upscaled sort of nouveau type of, because you see bonsai, they're so expensive. I thought, but it was actually very unique that I was ahead of the curve in terms of trying to get bonsai out of the garden center, out of the arboretum, out of this sense of plant, and move it into the world of art. And it's taken 30 years, but now finally you get to see bonsai exhibits at the Museum of Fine Arts, and you see bonsai in this country being respected as the art form that it is.
And you've been in Littleton since about
1989, and so I went from you know, what's interesting in between moving from Brookline to Littleton was realizing that the bonsai really, and we can talk more about this, about the old first.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. Yeah.
Okay, so I moved to Littleton in 1989, and I really thought I was coming out to the middle of nowhere. I didn't, you know, I lived in Brookline. The store was in Brookline, but I was renting a greenhouse in Sudbury, and I came up 27 and made a left on Route 2A, and this property was for sale, and I was thinking, God, who's going to come out here? I mean, it really was a leap of faith. I had no idea. I didn't even look at a map. I didn't know that 495 was just 2 miles
Right
down
the
the
street,
road. Right?
really.
So that was able to draw on, you know, the greater metropolitan area. And people still joke about Bonsai West, how I came up with that name. You know, now it's kind of funny, being out in Littleton, they probably assume it's Bonsai Metro West, but there's a funny story with that. We were in Brookline Village, and I wanted to call myself Bonsai Village. And I looked around at all the other businesses, and there was Village Pizza, Village Travel Agent, you know, Village
So that wasn't going to work.
Stationery.
Yeah.
So Bonsai Village just wasn't going to work, and so I said, well, you know, how about Bonsai World? How about Bonsai America? How about International Bonsai? And why not take the whole Western Hemisphere? So I called myself Bonsai West.
Good. Now, Michael, you also have other things here that you do offer. You have classes, workshops, vacation and winter boarding. I really want to talk about that a little bit. And you have other events. So let's talk about some of those things.
Well, so the winter boarding, I think, and the babysitting and the hospital services, I think, are one of the reasons why I was able to build a market. I really hate to, you know, talk about business and bonsai because, you know, it's such a beautiful art form. And as I become a better artist myself, I'm getting a little bit away from the whole, I find myself maturing and finding myself getting tired of the whole business aspect of it. I think the next generation of young, you know, bonsai artists will grow this business much larger. But at the time that I, you know, was, you know, struggling and putting together the business, I thought of every kind of revenue stream I can find. And it occurred to me that, you know, one of the reasons why people have trouble with bonsai is that there's nobody teaching, and so my classes became very popular, and this whole idea of a bonsai babysitting service and hospital and other services allowed customers to bring their trees to me before things got seriously, you know, out of whack. And so we can save trees before they die, and we take great pride. We spend more time, I think, on our customer trees than our own trees, and that part of the business has grown to the point where this is hard to believe, but I have over 1,000 customer trees at this nursery almost for the whole winter, and over 300 or 400 trees for people that go away on vacation for the summer. And that just shows how big I think the whole regional market has grown to.
I was here earlier, and there was a customer in the greenhouse coming to pick up his trees. I don't know if he was on vacation or maybe they were here all winter.
Right.
But I always thought that was kind of neat.
It is unique, and there's not how many garden centers, you know, would be able to do babysitting. But when you think about it, lots of businesses. I mean, even a dry cleaner is you know, storing people's clothing, and so storing people's trees, because these are heirlooms. I mean, people will buy a bonsai and they take it seriously. This tree is going to be with them for the rest of their life. This tree will outlive them. And so if they are traveling, you know, for our $5 a week is what we charge for babysitting. For $5, they're going to bring their tree to us, and we're going to take care of it.
Now, you also have, well, the activities here are mentioned on the website, but you have the workshops. But I notice you also have guest speakers occasionally.
I do, and that's one of the things that makes Bonsai West unique in the bonsai world, in that, including Japan, where usually the bonsai nursery is run by the bonsai artist, and it's usually a mom and pop business, and it's a studio, and that all the works of art would be the results of that one artist. And what Bonsai West has always been from the very earliest days was a gallery of some of the great artists from around the world, and that I have, you know, these trees that came from the first generation Japanese in California, but also trees that are imported from Japan. And so as a gallery, I think of myself more as a curator, and you know, yes, I do so many of the lecture demos and classes myself now. After 30 years, I guess you do have to get good, you know, or find another career. And, you know, as the years have gone by, I have become, you know, I like to call myself more of a craftsman than an artist. But there are these, this young generation of artists who is on the circuit. It's a circuit of bonsai mastery where, let's say you went to Japan and you apprenticed for 6 whole years under the guidance of a Japanese master. When you finish your apprenticeship, you're out looking to make a living yourself, and not everybody would, you know, be able to open a nursery or, you know, be able to just jump into the bonsai world. So the easiest way to make a living is to teach. And so there is this circuit of traveling bonsai professionals, some of the great artists from around the world. Many of them are European, South American, Japanese, and now a growing number of American artists. And we host them, and we have these events where they teach, they speak. You just missed our spring open house, which was the last weekend, May 20th and 21st. But we'll have our fall open house, we'll have summer events, we have winter lecture demos, and so I'm always hoping people will sign up on our mailing list on bonsaiwest.com, so you know they can be notified of these upcoming events.
And a lot of these events are from people, different events depending on how learned you are in with the bonsai. I'm sure you have some classes for beginners.
I do. We really still concentrate on beginners, and that's one of the things that is, you know, I don't want to say it's discouraging because it's such a lifelong pursuit, but, you know, everybody's a beginner, you know, and I still, after 30 years, have finally gotten to the point where, you know, I can say, hey, you know, I'm getting this, you know, but, you know, that sounds a little bit discouraging, but I think as Americans, we think, you know, first, I think we're intrigued by the age of bonsai, we're intrigued by the age, and then we're intrigued by the value. You know, we find it hard to imagine that the great artists in Japan are selling trees for millions of dollars. We don't equate bonsai with fine art, like going to the Museum of Fine Arts and seeing, you know, a Monet. But the great bonsai in Japan, some of them are considered national treasures and aren't even allowed to leave the country. But in this country, we've only first even heard the word bonsai since World War II. And like I said earlier, most people haven't even heard of bonsai since the Karate Kid. And so the most knowledgeable bonsai people like myself have only been doing it for 30 years. And so the person just walking off the street really has to realize they got to start somewhere. And so we have an intro to bonsai class, we have a yours, mine, and ours for couples. That's an intro class for couples. And people take it with their kids, and grandparents take it with their kids, and young couples. And what an amazing and wonderful thing that finally, after it being considered an old, stodgy, sort of retired person's hobby, that
More mainstream now.
You can't believe the young people that come in to the nursery on you pop in here on a weekend. The place is packed. It's hopping. The parking lot is full. I mean, I'm sure people that live here are wondering what's going on at Bonsai West, and people are just taking classes and picking up little trees. And what we specialize in, besides the big finished bonsai, is the little stock plant, like to do it yourself. So you have the little, the little pre-bonsai that you can learn how to cut the roots and pot it yourself. We sell all the pottery and the tools and the soils and everything that you would ever need to grow your own tree.
Okay, let's get into these Monet-like trees a little bit. We were talking yesterday, you mentioned your stewardship and your responsibility to a collection of trees here that have a historical importance, and there's something that's very special to you and to Bonsai West.
Well, thanks for asking that, because it's actually very humbling to realize that I'm, at this kind of young age, at 62, that I'm becoming the old man of bonsai in this country. And when I started, I went out to California and met this group of families of first-generation Japanese artists. They'd all been interned, obviously, after World War II. And when they got out of internment camps, they lost everything. These were professionals who lost their careers and their houses. Mr. Yamasaki's house was actually burnt down right in front of him as he returned to his village. And obviously there's huge sadness associated with all of this, but through it all, they had this cultural connectivity of bonsai. They started the Southern California Bonsai Club and Society, and when I befriended many of these families in the 1980s, or mid-1980s, they were people in there. These were families that were already in their 80s. These were old people that were really winding down with their bonsai collections. And they saw something in me, this young kid, my enthusiasm, my huge interest in what they were doing. And also, I don't think their kids were as interested in their parents' hobby. I think they were a little embarrassed by their parents. And so the second generation Japanese really didn't, they skipped a generation as far as their interest. And I came along and befriended the Hatanakas, the Ishis, the Yamasakis, and they sold me their trees. And these were trees that were started from little seedlings in the 1950s. And so when I came on the scene in the 1980s, these were trees that were already 35 years old. And who would imagine that another 35 years would go by and that I've managed to keep many of these trees in my collection. And that's why I love when I do a garden tour to talk about the history of these trees, because it's something a lot bigger than me. I feel like there's been, I feel like I'm the stewardship, like you say, of these trees is that they're here, I'm already the second generation owners of them, and someday they're going to pass on to other people. Someday somebody will be looking at a tree and somebody will say, where did you get that? And they might say, from some old guy in Littleton who got it from some old guy in California, and that might be 70 years from now. That might be 2080.
What's the actual age of the oldest trees here?
So the oldest trees that are from this country, like we're talking about, are trees that were started after World War II. But there's trees that are collected in the mountains and that we actually dig up as old trees. That in Japan, there's actually words for all of this. Yamadori is what they call these collected trees. And these trees in Japan that were collected as far back as the 16 and 1700s were trees that were in the mountains that were hundreds of years old when they started. And in Japan, the whole bonsai village moved from Tokyo to this little village called Omiya Village because they were worried about the pollution in Tokyo in the 1700s. That's how much they cared about taking care of these trees. In this country, again, we're so new to bonsai that we still marvel at the age of these trees. But it's kind of a scary time that we're going through in American bonsai, because there are ancient trees that are wild trees that are growing in nature. So for instance, if you went up into the mountains, you can find trees that are hundreds of years old, like out in the Rocky Mountains, and there's people digging them. And there's huge ethical dilemmas that we question. There's the one issue of the fact that you're liberating this tree and bringing it down to a city, and maybe in a public garden or an arboretum, you're actually allowing more people to enjoy these trees. But then there's the whole issue of digging trees. So to answer your question, yes, there's trees that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, but they're trees that were old trees to begin with, and they've only been worked on as bonsai for the last, let's say, a few decades.
Well, I mean, this is art at work. I was here a little earlier, and I'm watching some of the folks here doing the pruning and the trimming. And it's artwork.
And the wiring, it's sort of like the wire is what bends the branches. I mean, people you really, I hope, all of you out there, come on down and take a look at what we're doing here, because it's really quite fascinating. We bend the branches with wire, and you'll see trees that are being bent, and we transplant the trees, so we're doing things like root pruning. And while there are all these advanced techniques and all sorts of advanced hobbyists who are here, this is probably one of the more laid-back, relaxing places to spend an afternoon. You're not at all going to feel. I think there's a sense that there's an in-group of bonsai nerds or bonsai people that, you know, either you're in or you're out. It's not like that at all. There's people that bring their whole families here. There's people that have picnic lunches here in the garden. And I'm always happy to show you around and talk to you about the trees. And especially, what an opportunity having you do this program for me. I'm really honored that you've selected Bonsai West to talk to me.
No, our honor. Again, Littleton's best kept secret, maybe not such a secret anymore. What are the hours here? And do you want to give a phone number too?
Sure. Well, we're actually closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're open Thursday through Monday. You know, certainly every weekend we're open 10 to 6. And our phone number is 978-486-3556. And our website is bonsaiwest.com. And just come on by.
Okay, and again, 100 Great Road, right off of where Power Road comes in to Route 2A here in Littleton. Michael,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bob. Well, here's something new. The fourth Wednesday of every month, which in June is the 22nd, will be a Veterans Breakfast at the COA Diner. It's from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and it's free. And it's open to all veterans of any age. Now, Bob, that includes you. Are you going to go and get some bacon and eggs?
You know, I just might. I just might do that. But you know, also, speaking of breakfast, each year on the first Friday in June, people happily celebrate National Donut Day. This day celebrates the donut and honors the Salvation Army lassies, the women that served donuts to the soldiers during World War I. In 1917, the original Salvation Army donut was first served by the ladies of the Salvation Army. It was during World War I, the Salvation Army lassies were sent to the front lines of Europe. Home-cooked foods provided by these brave volunteers were a morale booster to the troops. Donuts were often cooked in oil inside the metal helmets of American soldiers. American infantrymen were then commonly called doughboys. National Donut Day, an unofficial national holiday, was created by the Salvation Army in 1938 to honor the women who served the donuts to the soldiers in World War I.
Yeah, I really need to look into that. Get it? Need?
Well, my cat also needs, by the way.
Ah, yes.
And I'm going to use that as a segue.
Okay.
Because my cat Ernie, I go to Donnellan's, buy him cat litter. And when I go to Donnellan's, I look over at the bakery, and I always see the Rolling
That's
Pin
right.
Bakery.
Yes.
And you have a little history with that, I'm sure.
I do, yes. My cousins owned the Rolling Pin Bakery, my Uncle Al.
Proud?
The Prales, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
My dad's mom was a Prale, or Crory.
Yeah.
Crory, well, let me say it again. My dad's sister married Al Prale.
Okay.
So that's how we got the connection in there. And, you know, every once in a while we used to go in there and my uncle would give us a free donut. My favorite with the chocolate, of course.
You know, I've read some, well, actually, I remember it. I've lived in Littleton long enough, but they opened at 6 o'clock in the morning. But if you got there early, I've heard he would just let people in.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. You know, I was mostly in school during those days when they owned the bakery. But I remember they used to get a shipment at school in the morning for the cafeteria, and you could buy a donut. I think it was only 25 cents or 50 cents for a donut.
Okay.
It was pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, yeah.
They had great donuts.
It was doable. The only game in town then.
Yeah.
Now we have, my goodness, we have 2 Dunkin' Donuts, fresh donuts, of course. Archer's mobile station advertises a big sign out front, gourmet donuts. And then we have, what do we have? Donnellan's, of course. And then a little further away from the center of town, we have Market Basket and then the Wayside service station.
So there's no shortage of donuts in town.
No shortage of donuts
That's always
in
a good
Littleton.
thing.
No shortage of donuts.
And National Donut Day. Boy, I can't wait for that. That's like a holiday for me.
Well, we're going to celebrate.
Okay.
Celebrate the day by enjoying your favorite donut.
Sure.
Now, you're going to say all of the above.
Well, yeah. No, well, I like chocolate, so anything chocolate related is fine by me. You know, my family and I recently went to Congdon's Donuts in Wells, Maine, and we got a baker's dozen, which is 13, and they were the most heavenly confections this side of the Mississippi. So if you're ever up on Route 1 in Wells, Maine, stop by Congdon's, and you and your taste buds will be glad you did.
President Bush used to stop there. You know, his summer home's two towns down, Kennebunkport, so yeah.
That's right. You're right,
Yeah,
right up the
yeah.
road. So, you know, all this talk of food is making me pretty hungry. So let's head down to the senior diner where Gail Dalton is and see what she's cooking there. Hiya, Gail.
Well, thanks, guys. Well, it is now June, and a lot of activity is going to be happening in this month. Also, I just want to thank the Eagle Scout, Matt Seitier, S-E-I-T-T-E-R. I hope I'm saying your name right, because one of his projects was he built cedar planters for the seniors, in which the garden club came and planted all these beautiful herbs that are right out in the patio, and people have been complimenting about it, and he did a wonderful, wonderful job building those planters, so thank you very much, Matt. We really appreciate it. So now we have all these wonderful herbs, and I see people looking, and they're even asking if they could take some of the herbs home, and the answer is no, because they belong to the senior diner. So we actually use them in some of the meals that we cook. So I'll let everybody know what the herbs are. There's cilantro, oregano, thyme, chives, lavender. I've never cooked with lavender, but we'll try. Mint, basil, and lemon balm. And rosemary. So those are for the diner, and I have already added some seasonings into certain meals, and people have noticed a difference. So we really, really appreciate to have the fresh herbs. Thank you again. Now for June. I'm going to give you the dates for our birthday lunch. It's going to be on Wednesday, June 8th. So everybody born in the month of June, please come down. And the COA buys a beautiful cake, and Minuteman pays for your meal. So everybody in the birthdays in June, and hopefully Hazel Plummer will be there for her 108th birthday. So let's hope, everything's better with her. The ladies' breakfast will be Thursday, June 9th. The men's breakfast will be Wednesday, June 15th. The Veterans Breakfast, again, is the fourth Wednesday, so it's the week after the men's. June 22nd, again, that's the Littleton Police Department. They put that on. So all the veterans, please. And they'll have speakers, a veterans agent come out to talk, and it should be very informative. Also, we are also going to kick off the summer with a cookout. The COA is going to kick off June 21st. That's a Tuesday, and it is free. That's right, you heard me, free. So we'll probably have about 120 people show up that day. There'll be hamburgers, hot dogs, coleslaw, baked beans, and something special for dessert. Also, the men's and ladies' breakfast is going to be combined, so that starting in July, it will be combined breakfast will be July 20th and Wednesday, August 17th. So it's on a Wednesday. So July 20th for the combined and August 17th, and it's $3. I don't know if people realize that the amount went up for breakfast at $3. The COA lunches are still going on. I write it down, or you could call me to find out what the lunch is, and that's $3 every Thursday. But the Minuteman lunches, which we have a menu for, they are $2, okay? So if you have any questions, you can just call me down at the diner, and I hope to see you all.
Maybe we can sweet talk Gail into giving us a couple of donuts.
Good.
Good, or don't quit my day job.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what you'd rather.
either, both.
Okay, but thank you, Gail. Now head over to Indian Hill Music Center for Bach's Lunch Concert on Thursday, June 16th. There are two shows. The first one's at 11 a.m., and then the second one is at 1:30 p.m. There are complimentary coffee, tea, and cookies, and of course, bring your own lunch. As always, it's free admission. For more info, go to www.indianhillmusic.org.
Well, speaking of websites, did you know that LCTV had one? Well, I had a chance to sit with Bill Vales, who you'll see later on in this program with his Tech Talk segment, and we spoke about a cool new website that LCTV launched this year. Take a look. Well, joining me now is Bill Vales, and Bill, we're going to talk about something that is on everybody's mind in Littleton, I know that, and that's how do you access LCTV on demand? And I know that you're one of those guys who likes to shoot the breeze down Little Peach in the morning, and people often ask you, how do I see the shows? I look for them, or I missed them on cable, or I don't have cable. How do I access the shows? So we thought we would take some time. It's very simple and easy to do, but we're going to go show you at home the steps you need to do to access LCTV on demand. You can get a whole host of programming and information on LCTV On Demand. Now, you may have seen a segment like this before, but in the new year, we switched over to a new site, so the layout is a little different for those of you who have accessed On Demand before. So it's important, I think, to let people know about the changes, some of the new things, some of the new features, and specifically how to get there. So with that in mind.
Okay, and I need to add here that one of the nice things about this is you can watch our shows 24 hours a day.
Yes.
7 days a week, anytime you want. So if you want to get up at 3 in the morning to watch Littleton Rocks,
Yeah,
for
right.
instance,
For instance,
you,
just throwing that out there, that show.
you can log in to watch that. So,
Very good.
okay, so here's how you access it.
do it.
You bring up your browser, whatever your browser is of choice, Safari or Firefox,
Yeah.
or I use Google Chrome here.
We do find, though, that Firefox seems to work better with things. You know,
Okay, well that's why I'm going to use Google Chrome.
let's try it.
Okay, so there's a number of ways that you can get to the website. What I'm going to demonstrate here is you use, let's go to the town website.
Sure.
Okay, and we're going to use
And we'll bring it up full screen for you so you can get a better look at home.
www.littletonmass.org. And that page is displayed. And scroll down the left side here, and you'll see here LCTV On Demand.
Right on the home page, left-hand side.
Right on the home page.
That's good, so you don't have to navigate really anywhere else but the home page of littletonma.org to find LCTV
Exactly.
On Demand.
Scroll down that left menu, and it'll be highlighted, and you left click on it. And then
And there we are.
and there you are on,
Now-
on demand.
You notice that this particular page is divided into 4 tabs at the top: recent, programs, live, and schedule. So if you go to recent, you'll see underneath little thumbnails of some recent programs that have been uploaded to the site. And you can, there's a little bar right below the thumbnails that you can, a little gray bar that you can move along, and that'll move you through the different thumbnails that have been recently uploaded. And so let's say you're looking for a selectmen's meeting, okay? If you go under the next tab, which is programs, right next to recent, you click on programs.
We're going to left click on that.
Yep. And you'll notice, again, little thumbnails. But the difference in these thumbnails is that there's a little thing in the corner, right? Looks like a bunch of folders or an arrow with multi-pages behind them. And that lets you know that there's more than one program of this particular subject. This happens to be school committee that you're pointed to. But you want to use the gray bar and scroll over to where you find BOS, which stands for Board of Selectmen. And there it is right there.
Here it is right here, BOS.
Yep. So you click on the folder, the little arrows right next to it. Yep, click on
Okay,
that.
I'm going to left click.
And you notice now down below, all the Board of Selectmen meetings will populate in the window below. And to the right of that thumbnail for each meeting, you'll see a little gray bar, and you can scroll down that, and it'll show you all the different Selectmen meetings that we have. So you can go back as far as November 2015 for particular meetings. So let's say we wanted to watch, not the most current one, the May 9th, but we wanted to watch April 25th.
Okay.
So we would find the BOS for Monday, April 25th.
And we're going to position to the thumbnail there, and we're going to left click on that. You get the message, video is loading, and there
And
it is.
And now you can watch this on demand.
Concerned about screens, we've got about the
So if you pause that, you can do several things. You can, just like at home, you can fast forward, you can jump to a certain spot in the video. There's a little counter in the bottom right that lets you see where you are time-wise in the meeting.
Right here.
Yep.
You know, and you have audio controls here, and you can even make it full screen.
That's correct.
Okay, and
If you have an Apple TV at home and you can Apple TV this to your television at home, and you can
Yep.
watch it in full screen there as well.
That's right.
But this also works with mobile devices, with iPads, you know, whatever you can access the internet with, you can get LCTV on demand.
So you could be out to dinner at one of the new restaurants at the Point, and you could bring up the Board of Selectmen's meeting on your iPad during dinner.
You can watch any episode of any of our locally produced shows here on LCTV on demand. Now we don't upload all our programming to LCTV on demand. There's a lot of shows that we air that we call out-of-house productions, and those are shows that come from neighboring towns.
I see.
And because they take up space, you know, every show that you load up here is taking up memory.
Sure.
We want to save the memory for just the shows that we produce and the shows that come from Littleton. And you can tell there are a lot of shows.
There
that come
are,
from
and
here.
they're growing all the time.
And they are. We really strive to keep this updated and relevant. So now here's another neat feature about this on demand that a lot of people don't know. If you look at the next tab up the top, so we've gone through recent, we've gone through programs. The third one's called live. If you click on that, below the word live, you see 3 LCTV little banners, and one says public, and the middle says education, and this says government.
And that's where that acronym PEG
That's right.
comes from.
PEG, PEG stations. Let's say you wanted to watch something that was going on live, one of the select meetings or whatever. If you tune in, you don't have cable, or maybe you do, you're out on the road, but it's 7 o'clock, you want to watch the selectmen live. You don't want to wait for on demand. You can click on the government channel, and go ahead and click that now. And what will happen is our live stream of our programming, whatever's on the air right now, will currently start to stream. So we just paused it. But you can actually watch our programming live. On demand.
Wow.
And that's a new feature that we've never offered before until this year. Now the final tab is called Schedule. And this is kind of a neat little thing. You click on Schedule there. And let's say you, again, you pick one of the public, education, or government that you want to view the schedule for. Let's go to public this time.
Okay.
Now here it shows you exactly what will be on cable TV at a certain time. And if a show, for instance, we're looking at Tuesday, 5/17, this is when we're taping this program, and it lists the program of what time each show is on cable. Now, if it has a thumbnail next to it, that means you don't have to wait. You can just click on the thumbnail and you can instantly watch that show.
Wow. So you can go right to the...
You can go right to it. So let's say we want to watch, scroll down a little bit. Fun with Science. Now, right now we're taping the show at 1:30. It's not on cable yet, but we want to watch Fun with Science now, and it's not on until 3:30 today. But guess what? We can click on that, and there's your episode of Fun with Science. So
Wow.
it's a nice little feature to have.
It sure is.
And you can scroll down to different days using the little arrow keys right next to the Saturday and Sunday. You see little arrow keys. If you click on that, it'll go the next day or whatever day you want to look at. And it's, again, another way to access and also to know when your favorite shows will be on. People also ask me, how do I know when a program is on? And this gives you a nice programs guide.
This is how we know.
This is one way to know. Yeah.
Where's Littleton Rocks here? Why isn't that showing on that day? Who do I take that up with?
Yes, well, because we had to migrate from one system to the other, we are still in the process of uploading shows.
Okay.
It is a process, it takes some time.
Okay.
We tried to get the most recent episodes up so that people will be current, and as well as the government meetings. And then we've slowly been backlogging and backfilling in with your favorite shows. So hopefully they'll be up there and you'll be able to watch. Anything that doesn't have a thumbnail either hasn't been uploaded yet or is an out-of-house production.
Okay.
It's a show that we don't produce, but we show on our cable station.
Great. This is really an easy process to use. I mean, when you think about it, You go to the website, you go to the town's page.
Yep.
You don't have to navigate over that, off that page. You find on demand on the left side of the screen. You click there, you go there, and then you have these choices
That's
up
right.
here.
I do want to show one more neat thing, and if you go back to the Town of Littleton homepage, now you'll notice up the top section, if you scroll up just a little bit more,
Yep.
there's a thing that says departments.
Okay.
And if you scroll over that or click on it, you'll notice that down the bottom where the tabs are on the left-hand side,
Here we go.
you'll see a cable, a department that says cable.
Right here.
Yep. You click on that.
This is all alphabetized.
That's correct. So under C for cable. This is the LCTV section of the town homepage. And again, we have a whole bunch of information on here. Our contact information if you want to get in touch with myself or Kirby Dolak, where we're located, our hours of operation, where you can find our LCTV channels. The advisory committee is listed down here for questions, not only about LCTV, but about cable in general. That's the people that you would contact. And then on the left-hand side, a whole host of things that people can check out. Not only is our program schedule there for both the government, the educational, and the public station, but you can find, you know, stuff about meeting coverage, production workshops.
Information on the producers,
Yep.
Various events, how to acquire some DVDs of special events that we have.
How to submit a bulletin board. A lot of people want to get a
Yep.
message on the cable, but they don't know how to do that. All that information's right here at their fingertips.
And this, the ability to do public service announcements in the bulletin board is a very valuable thing. We're going to have to do another section on that, another show on that, I
Sure,
think.
that would be great. That would be great. So that's it. That's how LCTV On Demand works. Bill, thank you for being the navigator there.
Thank you.
Bill is an expert computer guy, so I would assume that he would know how to do this already. But you can see how easy it is. I think that even if you didn't know anything about computers, you can certainly, you know, click a couple of icons
Yep.
and get right to where you need to go.
Absolutely.
So we hope you check us out on demand, LCTV On Demand. And we like your feedback. We appreciate your feedback. And we want to, we're there for you. So, Bill, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining me. And I guess back to me and Bob again in the studio.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for that, Mark and Bill. Movie of the month at COA will be The Finest Hour. This movie is based on a true story about a daring Coast Guard rescue off the coast of Cape Cod in 1953. The movie will be shown in room 230 on Thursday, June 23rd at 1 p.m. Please sign up in the COA office or call 978-540-2470.
Littleton resident Paul Tokmakian will be teaching a class entitled Cooking for One. It teaches you how to make easy and delicious meals for one. Not only does Paul teach you how, but at the end of the class, you'll take home the meal for that evening. So the class is limited to only 8 people, though, so call the COA office at 978-540-2470 and reserve your spot.
Well, now Bill Vales returns with this month's Tech Talk.
Thanks, guys. Previously, we talked about how the world is becoming increasingly interconnected. This increased interconnectivity is referred to as the Internet of Things. Central to this increased interconnectivity, or Internet of Things, is a device that we all have. It is our router. For most of us, we never think much about our routers. It sits in a corner of our house, and it is always on. We use it to connect to the internet. We secretly hope we will never have to do anything to the router. We are not sure what it does, but we know we need it. When we are asked what the password is for the router, we usually respond with, "Password? I didn't know it has a password." Many people don't have a clear picture of what the router does, including how to connect to it, how to secure it, and the vulnerabilities associated with it. In this Tech Talk, we are going to start to answer some of these questions. It is important to have an understanding of the role the router plays in our computing environment. What are some of the features of the router? What services does the router provide? How do you connect the router? What are the various plugs and cables associated with the router, and what are they used for? Well, the router is used to connect to the internet. For many of us, our routers are installed in our home or businesses by our internet service providers. Internet service providers are also referred to using the abbreviation ISP. Well-known ISPs in our area are Comcast, also called Xfinity, and Verizon. Comcast provides internet service using cable technology. Verizon provides internet service using DSL and Fios, which is fiber optics. What we think of as a router is actually a combination of a modem and a router. The modem receives a signal from the ISP, and the router allows for a computer or several computers to use the internet signal. You could have a separate modem and a separate router, but for the average user, the extra complexity is simply not needed. Why have two separate devices when one will suffice? You can also purchase your own router rather than using what the ISP provides for you. For more sophisticated users that require extra routing functionality, this may be desirable. But for the average user, and I include myself in that, the ISP-provided router provides most of the features we need. Plus, should you ever experience a problem with your internet connection and you need to call your ISP, it sure is nice to be able to say, the only equipment I have installed at my house is yours. You should notice the router can be physically mounted several different ways. It can be placed on a table horizontally, or it can be placed on four legs vertically in a stand. Now let me show you here. I have a router, and this is a Verizon router, and this is how it would look if it was placed on a table horizontally. Okay? Now, it can also be placed in a stand vertically, just like this. Now, it's very important, and I've also seen these placed on walls where they can be mounted onto a wall. Okay, now it's very important. You'll notice on the router that it has areas here for airflow, and it's very important to maintain airflow around the router. As with all electronic devices, maintaining sufficient airflow for keeping the device cool is very important. Okay? Typically, the ISP service technician will install your router, or maybe a well-meaning relative or friend will hook you up with the latest router. In either case, you are probably provided with little information concerning the installation. How is the router hooked up? What is the router password? What do I do if the power goes out and the router does not start up when power is restored? And one of my favorite questions for people is, where is the router even located? It is useful to know the answer to some of these questions. Now, I'm not suggesting we have to learn how to program the router and become network and security engineers. But having a basic understanding of the router is helpful and important. For example, if you ever needed to relocate the router to a different room, or you just want to make order out of that jumble of wires that are behind your computer. Also, should you need to make a call to your ISP for a service issue, they may ask you to check the connections as part of the first level of troubleshooting. Keep in mind the following points. There are numerous types and makes of routers. However, most routers are connected in a similar manner. ISPs are providing services for TV, internet, and phone. All of these services may access your router for various functions. And finally, computers can connect to the router wired or wirelessly. We will discuss both of them. Now, on the router here, there's the first way to connect, and we're going to start over here. This is the connection for a coaxial cable that the ISP runs to your house. Now, a coax cable looks like this. This is a coax cable. Okay, now the coax cable, it's fairly heavy. It's a shielded cable, so it'll shield out electrical interference. And the coax cable also has a copper wire that runs through the center of it. Okay, and this coax cable will get connected to the router, like so, and you'll screw it in. Okay, so that would be connecting the coaxial cable, and I think I'm going to leave that installed just like that. So the other end of that cable comes from the wall. Okay, so your ISP would have installed that. Okay, then you need to provide power to the router, and for powering your router you use an AC power adapter. Okay, and I think we've seen most of these with our printers and various devices that we have around the house. You have a little plug that plugs into the router, and tip up the router. There it is right here. Push it in, sits tightly, and then this is simply a wall plug, or plug it into your power strip. Okay, I'm going to leave that in. Okay, now you also have an on-off switch with your router, and on this particular router it's labeled with a 0 or a 1. 0 is off and 1 is on. Certainly when you're connecting the router, you want it off. Now, if you are ever asked to recycle the power to your router, recycle is a fancy word for turn it off. Okay, and what you would do is you would press this to the off position and you'd wait 5 seconds or so. That gives enough time for any electrical components to lose their charge. And then you would press it back to 1 to turn it on, and that will recycle the power. The router should restart and you will resume internet service, hopefully, in a minute or so. When connecting the router, make sure this switch is set to the off position. Okay, now next to this we have the reset button, the dreaded reset button. Now, sometimes your router can get hung up. This can be the result of a system bug, a power fluctuation, or some other problem. Sometimes recycling the power, shutting it on and off, does not fix the problem. So you may need to reset the router. Now, to reset the router, there's a little button here, right here, and it's actually recessed. And the reason it's recessed is you don't want to hit it by accident. But you can either take a mechanical pencil like I have here, or a paper clip, and place it in that hole and press it, and you'll feel the button reset. Okay, so you hold that for a couple seconds, release it, the router will shut down, then it'll come back up, and it'll be resetting. Now, often, if you are making a call to your ISP to report a problem, the ISP may ask you to do a router reset, okay? Now we see here, there's a group of Ethernet connections. Now, on this particular router, there's 5 Ethernet connections. 4 are yellow and one is white. Now, Ethernet connectors have a shape similar to a telephone wire, only they are larger. Now, the Ethernet cable is run to your house by Verizon. So here's my Ethernet cable, and Verizon runs this to my house. Okay. So now Verizon has run two cables to my house, my coax cable, which is over here, the first one, and the Ethernet cable. Now I'm going to plug this Ethernet cable into the white connection, and it snaps, okay? And that tells you that you have a good connection. Okay, now the yellow Ethernet cables are used to connect your router to a computer if you want to connect with a wire. Now, I always bring an Ethernet wire with me when I travel. Bring an extra Ethernet cable with me when I travel. That way, if I have a problem with the wireless signal, I can always connect with a wire. Okay. Now, finally, we have an antenna on the router here. Newer routers may have two antennas. The antennas transmit signals wirelessly. So with a router such as this, which can be used wired or wirelessly, you can connect to it two different ways. Most laptops connect wirelessly. However, you can connect your laptop with an Ethernet wire if needed. And that would be done by, you use one of these yellow connections, and you put it in. These are numbered 1 through 4. Okay, so you put it in, you can put it in any one, that will snap. And then on the computer, there's also an Ethernet connection. Mine is over here. And that snaps in there. So I have now connected this computer with a wire to the router. And this Ethernet connection was given to me by Verizon, and the coax cable is given to me by Verizon. Okay, the router is ready to go. You power on the router by pressing the on-off switch from 0 to 1. Here we go. Put power on. Now, to determine what is going on with the router, you need to look at the lights on the front of the router. Now, notice on the front of the router, I'm going to turn it around here. Okay, there's a series of lights on the router. Okay, now the router can be either oriented this way or this way, depending on how you set it up. Okay, but there are labels that are over the lights or alongside the lights, depending on your orientation. And those tell you the status of your router. The lights are telling you if the power is on, what connections are active, and if the wireless signal is working. Okay, this provides us with a general overview of the router. We still need to cover details around how we connect wirelessly and how we provide additional customization of the router configuration. But for now, enjoy the internet connection you have, which was set up for you by your ISP. But do take a look at your router to orient yourself to the various plugs and lights that are on the device. It is important to have a general understanding of these features. That's it for this Tech Talk. Practice, practice, practice. See you next month.
Well, that should do it for this edition of Littleton Common. I'm Mark Crory.
And I'm Bob Spinozzi. Have a great month of June. Up for all of you.